All right, so we're diving into a classic today,
Okay.
How to Win Friends and Influence People
hmm
by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah,
This book, it's sold millions of copies,
it has.
and it still feels relevant today, almost a century later.
Absolutely.
I think we all want better relationships,
For sure.
but sometimes the advice out there feels a little cheesy.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I'm really curious to see if Carnegie's wisdom still holds up,
Right.
and more importantly, if it can actually make a difference
Mm-hmm.
in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
So let's jump in.
Okay, that's good.
What's your take on this book? It's
Well, it's interesting you bring up that point about cheesy advice
yeah.
because Carnegie actually tackles some of the most common pitfalls
Yeah.
in human interaction head on.
Okay.
And he starts with a principle that might surprise you.
Oh,
Stop criticizing, condemning, and complaining.
wait, really?
Yeah,
Isn't giving feedback, even critical feedback, important for growth?
it is. But the way we deliver that feedback matters immensely.
Right.
Think about it when someone criticizes you.
Yeah.
Even if it's constructive, how do you react? You probably get defensive, maybe even a little resentful.
Yeah.
Carnegie recognized this inherent human response
Okay.
and argued that criticism often creates more resistance than change.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I'm picturing that classic scene
Oh, yeah.
of a boss just berating an employee
Oh, totally.
in front of everybody.
Publicly.
Talk about a recipe for resentment, not improvement.
Exactly. And there's a growing body of research now
Oh, wow.
in psychology and organizational behavior
Mm-hmm.
that backs this up.
Okay.
Studies show that positive reinforcement,
Right.
focusing on what people do well,
Yeah.
is far more effective in motivating change and improving performance
Interesting.
than constant criticism.
Okay, so instead of pointing out flaws,
Yeah.
Carnegie suggests we shift our focus to genuine appreciation. But how do we do that without resorting to empty flattery,
Right.
which feels fake and insincere?
Yeah. That's the key. You have to be specific and sincere.
Okay.
Instead of just saying, good job,
Mm-hmm.
highlight a particular action or quality you genuinely appreciate.
Got it.
For example, you could say, I really appreciate how you took the initiative
Okay.
to solve that problem.
Right.
Or your attention to detail on this project was impressive.
So it's about acknowledging the effort
Yes.
and impact of their actions, not just throwing out generic compliments.
Exactly. And when you do that, you're not just making them feel good.
Right.
You're reinforcing the behaviors you want to see more of.
Okay.
It's a win-win.
That's a great takeaway for me already.
Yeah.
I can see how that shift in perspective
Mm.
could make a real difference in my interaction.
Absolutely.
Now, there's another technique Carnegie emphasizes that caught my attention,
Okay.
and it sounds a little manipulative, to be honest.
Okay.
Arousing the other person, an eager want.
I can see why that phrase might raise an eyebrow,
Yeah.
but it's actually about understanding and aligning
Okay.
with the other person's motivations.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of focusing on what you need,
Right.
you consider what they want
Okay.
and frame your ideas in a way that benefits them.
So it's not about manipulating them into doing something they don't want to do.
Right.
It's about finding common ground
Yeah,
and highlighting how your proposal can help them achieve their goals.
you got it.
Okay.
It's like in marketing,
Oh, yeah.
the most successful campaigns don't just push a product.
Right.
They tap into the desires and aspirations
Mhm.
of their target audience.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It makes me think of a time I was trying to persuade a colleague
Okay.
to take on this challenging project.
Yeah.
And instead of focusing on how it would help the team overall,
hmm
I highlighted how it would allow them to develop new skills
Right.
and gain valuable experience
Exactly.
that could benefit their career growth.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What?
They were much more receptive to the idea.
There you go.
Yeah.
See,
It's like you're speaking their language.
you're speaking their language. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm already seeing how these seemingly simple principles can have a big impact.
Yeah.
But Carnegie doesn't stop there.
No, he doesn't.
He goes on to outline 6 specific ways to make people like you.
He does.
And, sometimes I wonder if these likability techniques are a bit outdated.
Mm-hmm.
Do they still hold up in today's world?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to approach these techniques with a modern lens.
Okay.
It's not about being fake or trying to please everyone. It's
Right.
really about fostering genuine connection
Right.
and building strong relationships.
So the first principle
Yeah.
Carnegie highlights is something we've already touched on.
Right.
Being genuinely interested in others.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not just about pretending to be interested.
Yeah.
It's about actually being curious
Mm-hmm.
about the people you interact with. But isn't that easier said than done?
It can be.
We're all busy. We have our own lives, our own problems.
Right.
How do we cultivate that genuine interest in others?
Well, it starts with shifting our mindset from me to we.
Okay.
Instead of thinking about what you can get out of the interaction, focus on what you can learn about the other person.
Okay.
Ask open-ended questions.
Right.
Listen attentively to their responses and try to understand their perspective.
So it's about active listening.
Yeah.
Not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly.
Oh, I am so guilty of that sometimes.
I think we all are.
My mind starts racing ahead to what I want to say next.
Yeah.
And I miss half of what the other person's saying.
We all do it. It's human nature.
Yeah.
But with practice, we can train ourselves to be more present and engaged in conversations. And Carnegie actually offers a really simple but effective technique for improving your listening skills.
What's that?
Remember people's names.
Oh, man, names are my kryptonite.
Really?
I am terrible at remembering them.
Okay.
But why is that so important for making people like you?
Well, think about how you feel when someone remembers your name.
Yeah.
It makes you feel seen, valued, respected.
Yeah.
It shows that they were paying attention.
Right.
And that you made an impression on them.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed when someone remembers my name, especially if it's been a while since we've met.
Right.
It makes me feel like I mattered to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about remembering the name itself.
Right.
It's about using it in conversation.
Okay.
It personalizes the interaction, creates a sense of connection.
So we're talking about genuine interest,
Yes.
active listening, remembering names.
Yeah.
What else is in Carnegie's toolkit for building likability?
Well, he also emphasizes the importance of nonverbal communication.
Okay.
Particularly smiling.
Smiling.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might sound simple.
Right.
But a genuine smile can instantly make you more approachable and likable.
I've heard that smiling can actually trick your brain into feeling happier.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in the best mood.
Right.
Have you ever tried that?
I have, and it actually works.
Really?
There's a fascinating connection between our facial expressions and our emotions.
Interesting.
When you smile, your brain releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects.
Okay.
So even if you're feeling stressed or down, forcing a smile can actually lift your spirits.
Wow.
And make you feel more positive.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that next time I'm feeling grumpy.
I recommend it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Be genuinely interested, listen pretty to remember names. Smile. Are we sensing a theme here?
I think so.
Yeah.
All of these techniques point to a larger principle.
Okay.
Focusing on the other person.
Okay.
Making them feel valued and appreciated.
It's like shifting the spotlight from yourself to the person you're interacting with.
Exactly.
And speaking of spotlights,
yes,
Carnegie also suggests talking in terms of the other person's interests.
Right. People naturally gravitate towards those who share their interests and passions. So instead of trying to steer the conversation towards topics you're comfortable with, take the time to discover what the other person cares about.
Okay.
And engage them in those areas.
So, for example, if I know my colleague is really into photography, I could ask them about their latest project. Or share an interesting article I read about a new camera technique.
Exactly. It shows that you're paying attention to their interests.
Okay.
And that you value their perspective.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean you have to become an expert in everything they're passionate about.
Right.
It's simply about showing genuine curiosity.
Okay.
And a willingness to learn from them.
Okay. I'm really starting to see how these seemingly small adjustments in our behavior it can have a ripple effect on our relationships.
For sure.
But Carnegie doesn't just want us to be liked.
Right.
He also wants us to be persuasive.
Yeah.
So how do we win people over to our way of thinking without resorting to manipulation or aggression?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
In the next part.
Right.
We'll explore Carnegie's counterintuitive approach to persuasion.
Okay.
And you might be surprised by what he has to say.
Okay, so we talked about how to handle people.
Right.
Make them like us.
Yeah.
But let's get to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
How do we actually win people over to our way of thinking?
Right.
I mean, we all have ideas we want to share, projects we want to get off the ground, changes we want to see happen.
Absolutely.
So what is Carnegie's secret sauce for persuasion?
Well, you might be surprised to hear that Carnegie's approach to persuasion is surprisingly counterintuitive.
Okay.
He argues that the best way to win an argument is to avoid it altogether.
Hold on, are you serious?
Yeah.
Avoid arguments.
Avoid argument.
But what if you're passionate about something?
Yeah.
What if you really believe in your idea?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you have to stand up for what you believe in?
Of course, it's important to have convictions.
Right.
But Carnegie recognized that arguments often create more heat than light.
Okay.
When we dig in our heels and refuse to budge, we trigger defensive-ness in the other person, and that's when communication breaks down.
I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in those heated debates
where
everyone's talking over each other, and no one's really listening.
Nobody's listening.
It's exhausting and usually unproductive.
Exactly. And even if you manage to win the argument, you might lose something far more valuable, the relationship.
Okay.
So instead of trying to force your ideas on others, Carnegie suggests finding common ground, acknowledging the other person's perspective, and keeping the conversation constructive.
So it's more about collaboration than conquest.
Exactly.
Finding solutions that work for everyone involved.
Yes.
Rather than just trying to get your way.
Right.
Okay.
And this requires a willingness to listen.
Yeah.
To be open to different viewpoints, and even to admit when you're wrong.
Admit you're wrong?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound very persuasive.
It might seem counterintuitive.
Right.
But admitting fault can actually make you more persuasive.
Okay.
When you acknowledge your own mistakes, you come across as more humble, more human.
Yeah.
And it creates a space for the other person to do the same.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
It's like disarming the other person.
Yeah.
By lowering your defenses first.
Right.
It shows that you're not afraid to be vulnerable. And that builds trust.
Exactly. And when there's trust, people are more likely to listen to your ideas.
Right.
And consider your perspective.
Okay. So how do we actually put this into practice?
Okay.
Let's say you're trying to convince your team to adopt a new approach to a project.
Yeah.
How do you start that conversation
Okay.
without triggering an argument?
Carnegie suggests starting with praise.
Okay.
Finding points of agreement and letting the other person do most of the talking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So instead of launching into a detailed presentation of my brilliant idea, I should start by acknowledging the team's previous efforts.
Right.
And highlighting areas where we already agree.
Yes. And then ask open-ended questions to understand their perspective on the challenges we're facing and what solutions they might have in mind.
So it's about making them feel heard.
Yes.
Respecting their expertise and involving them in the solution-finding process.
Exactly. And by listening attentively, you might even discover that they have valuable insights or ideas that you hadn't considered before.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this approach is not just about winning people over. It's about working together to find the best solution for everyone involved.
Exactly.
But what if you encounter resistance?
Okay.
Even after you've done all of this?
Well, Carnegie has a few more tricks up his sleeve.
Okay.
He suggests framing problems as easily corrected, appealing to nobler motives, and dramatizing your ideas.
Okay. Break that down for me.
Right.
What do you mean by framing problems as easily corrected?
It's about focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on the problem itself. Instead of saying this is a huge mess, you could say here are a few simple steps we can take to improve this.
Ah, so it's about shifting the focus from negativity to possibility.
Exactly.
From blame to action.
Yeah.
And what about appealing to nobler motives?
Okay.
What does that mean?
It's about connecting your ideas to values that people care about.
Okay.
Like fairness, community.
Right.
Or making a positive impact.
So, for example, if you're trying to get your company to adopt more sustainable practices, you wouldn't just focus on the cost savings. You would also emphasize the positive impact it would have on the environment.
Exactly.
And the community.
People are more likely to support something.
Okay.
If they believe it aligns with their values.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And what about dramatizing your ideas?
Okay.
Is that where we bring in the smoke machines and pyrotechnics?
Not quite.
Right.
Dramatizing your ideas is about using vivid language, compelling stories, and memorable examples to bring your ideas to life.
Ah, so it's about engaging people's emotions.
Yeah.
Not just their intellect.
Right.
I've heard it said that facts tell, but stories sell.
Exactly. Stories have a powerful way of connecting with people on a deeper level.
Right.
And making ideas more persuasive and memorable.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But I'm really starting to see how these principles can be applied in so many different areas of life.
Absolutely.
From personal relationships to professional negotiations.
For sure.
And the beauty of Carnegie's work is that it's not about manipulation or coercion.
Yeah.
It's about understanding human nature.
Yeah.
And using that understanding to build stronger, more authentic relationships.
I love that.
So, dear listener, as you navigate the complexities of human interaction, remember the wisdom of Dale Carnegie.
Absolutely.
Avoid unnecessary arguments. Seek common ground.
Yes.
Listen attentively and focus on building genuine connections.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by the positive impact it has on your relationships in your life.
And one last thought to leave you with.
Okay.
How might applying even one of these principles transform your interactions with the people around you?
Right.
Something to ponder as you go about your week.